welcome back. Okay, Linus went off stage. We had one person too much on the stage. Now it looks fine again. Krzysztof, Chris, welcome here on the Launchpad today. We were going to talk about how Scrum is accelerating hardware product development, and you truly, really are very strong in that. You're a strong expert on this basis. You've developed many products, and you have hands-on experience really on pushing that forward. And of course, the combination between software and hardware, that's what we really bring on the table. And as we discussed earlier also with Christian and also with the other startup founders, it is a must today. There's nothing that is solely hardware anymore. There's always a combination of the two. Yeah. Chris is the CEO of SquadTec from Krakow, as I said. SquadTec is a hardware house that helps customers develop product fast. And Chris, you will be able to introduce your company later, so I'll leave it to you. But what I really think is really exciting that you really live and breathe agile product development. Yeah, you really love this to build the best engineering teams that work really fast. And as you say in your own words, we train organized squads that know how they drill. We empower people to do the best, to become the best themselves. Yeah. Only then you deploy them to your clients, because you work with a lot of clients. Yeah. And we want our engineers to take pride in their work. I think this is a very important thing. Yeah. So Chris truly believes in people and not simply in resources. So how to train the people and how to use the Scrum methodology. And what's fascinating about Chris' work is really using Scrum. Everybody knows Scrum from software and software development. And we know that software is, in a sense, different because you can change coding and change things. But once you develop a product, it is very more stringent process. So applying Scrum to this process is very good. But you also know the limitation, and that's very important to know when to use it and when not to use it. So we really look forward to hearing from you on that. Chris has gained a lot of experience to get there where he is today from companies and projects like Uber, Jump, Assa Abloy, Tubora, Motorola, ZF, Infineon. So you've seen a lot of these companies and you bring a lot of experience on the table. So please welcome Chris. We're very happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas, for nice introductions, and hello, everyone. Yes, so what's SquadTec? So
as you start talking about SquadTec, exactly. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so the company which we founded, because I'm not the only founder of the company, because there are a couple of guys who are co-founding this company for me. As I said, a hardware house, or hardware and software house, because right now software is an inherent part of almost every hardware which is developed right now. Everything has some piece of firmware, and everyone wants to connect with this device remotely. So software is also there. So from this perspective, we do a SquadTec, firmware software development, automated test systems, electrical and mechanical engineering, and also we help our customers to introduce Jira, configure Jira, and start with agile methodology in their development processes. But we are doing this practically, so helping them to see how it works in the real project. And why we founded is actually our passion and mission is to create the best engineering teams in the world, as we're saying. And actually, together combined, we have thousands of hours of experience in project management, engineering, and team building, leadership, which we collected in many global corporations, also founding own startups, which I think this is one of the best training fields, because when you are risking your own money and you have very limited funds from your investors, because this in Poland, investing is not so developed yet comparing to Western countries in Europe or in States, then efficiency is not a matter of choice, it's a must. You have no other options if you want to survive. So this is something what give us a great opportunity to train and look for the solutions which work in practice. We are talking about Scrum and Agile approach in development.
Yeah. And can you maybe go a little bit deeper in the way you're using Scrum? Like what part of the development stage you're using Scrum, and at what stage you stop using it, because then it might become a hindrance?
Yeah, so from Scrum perspective, and okay, maybe when we are looking at the hardware development, how does it look like? Every hardware has some stages that you need to go through from, let's say, early proof of concept stage. Then you are having prototyping stage, EVT, DVT, PVT stage, and then mass production. So this is what we noticed, that Scrum works really well at the very early stages, when you need to very quickly, rapidly prototype and find a way to do something, to test a lot of different options, to define technology which you are going to be used in your products. And also, this is very important, is to verify requirements and what we are actually doing and what the customer needs, or what are requirements from the product or project. So this, at the early stages, it's working really, really great in this context.
Mm-hmm. And where are the limitations? Where would you see where Scrum actually will mess up the development of your product?
I think that in the later stages, when you stabilize your product, your project, your hardware, so the stages like DVT, PVT, when you don't want to change too much, you want to have a stable platform, you are mastering or excelling your product, then this agility is, in my opinion, there's not the place where you can put it. Also, you have a lot of dependencies in hardware development, like supply chain, manufacturing, tooling, reliability testing, which requires sometimes a lot of time. In this situation, it's agility, at least from my perspective, is not the best alliance in a project development. But on the early stages, in my opinion, it works. At least we proved that many times. It works really great. Of course, when we are having the later stages of product development, and you have, let's say, purely software or firmware features which you can implement without changing anything in the hardware, okay, it still applies. But this is what you need to also keep in mind, that comparing, for example, for purely software projects like mobile application or web application, in hardware, there's much higher cost to replace if you screw something. Try to imagine that you have IoT unit and you lose contact with it. Then you need to find it, or it's lost. And on the mobile platform, it's very easy to replace something if it's wrong. Something is you just deploy something with mistakes, with bugs.
You cannot do an over-the-air update on that very product.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. This is a very extreme example, but it may happen.
Can you give us a good example from a customer of a product where you can explain really where the value that you added in this process and how you worked on it? Yeah, I don't know if you can mention a name or a product or what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. One of the examples is one of project which we done for a customer which is doing home appliance Electrolux. We are doing an indoor positioning system for them, and at the very beginning it was very requirements were very vague. Actually, they had a lot of constraints because it's a production plant. There is a lot of this interferences, like electromagnetic field. The plant was changing all the time. They didn't want to have too many devices on a plant, or any configuration calibration was not something they want to, or it was very limited possibility to do that frequently. So we kicked this off, and after 150 hours, because we measured everything, we had the first proof of concept. Okay, it was very ugly at the very beginning. The accuracy in positioning was not maybe the best, but at least it was something what we could show the customer, and we verify what he wanted, because also for him was a surprise. Yes, that this and this is something what I want, and this I don't want. So at least from that perspective, it's something what help us to verify on the very early stages what really needs to be done. And another aspect, positive aspect of that kind of approach is that teams are team members are seeing the result very quickly. So this really stimulating this joy of work, this engagement and motivation, because on a regular basis you are having something working to some extent, and then it's okay to improve it, to change it according to this what you get from your customers' feedback.
Cool, perfect. We have one last question actually from the Q&A board, and it's slightly unrelated, but how is the hardware startup scene in Poland developing? Does it also attract international entrepreneurs?
At least those which I've been co-founding, we have local investors. We have few, something like a startups or launchpad, I don't know how to say that, platforms or something like that. In Krakow, we have, for example, Krakow Business Park, which helps you to kick off your startup. You have a lot of support from them. There are also the founders or investors or angels, business angels who are investing in the business. And from that perspective, you have some support. But comparing to this, what you at least what I know about Silicon Valley or in Germany or in Norway, for example, the founding there is much on a higher level, and it's much easier to get funding for a hardware project or any project, engineering project at all.
Well, we see often, like in London or Paris, or also Berlin, of course, very strongly, that actually people from abroad come there to start actually a company. So do you see this happening also and developing in Poland? I mean, the chances are there.
That people are moving somewhere else to
we have a company based in Wrocław, and we have great engineers working there. So we see really great engineering potentials in Poland, right?
Yeah. So definitely, the engineering potential, in my opinion, is very strong on our side. But we are talking from this investing and the money perspective, founding perspective, because when you are developing a hardware product, you need to invest a lot of money for a certain amount of time and period of time, which you are not having any guarantee that you get the results. There is a huge risk behind that. So I mean, it is starting. I see, because we are also tracking this trend on our side in Poland, that it's getting better and better from year to year. But I still, in my opinion, when you want to have a really good funding for a technical startup, we are, at least a lot of friends which I have, which are also running some companies with engineering, they're looking for funding abroad, honestly saying.
Perfect. Chris, thank you very much for the information. It was really great hearing your perspective. Especially, it's so important for startups to stay still lean, even though it's a hardware product, to stay lean and how to be really fast, because ultimately that's the big advantage towards other ideas that have been developed out there, and also the big chance of startups towards corporates to really bring up ideas faster, quicker on the market. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Perfect.
Yep,
so
thank you very much.
On to the next slot. We have Julia Luxan and Christiane Feichner from Jarolim Partner. They will talk about IP-related issues that are affecting hardware startups. So see you at the next slot.